Item 5-25 is a divided report from the Committee on Environment
Chair
and Natural
understands Senator
Resources.
from Franklin, Senator Saviello moves reading of item 5-25 be dispensed with. The chair recognizes the senator from Cumberland, Senator Carson.
Wish to speak to my motion.
Senator from Cumberland, Senator Carson, whose majority ought to pass as amended, report be accepted. Chair recognizes Senator from Cumberland, Senator Carson.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, LD820 is a bill whose purpose and value is represented by its title. LD820 is an act to protect Maine's clean water and taxpayers from mining pollution. This bill has been a work in progress not for the 4+ months that we have been in session in 2017, but for about 5 years, and some would say longer. The BEP has worked on several sets of rules following adoption of the 2012 mining law. Each of these sets of rules has been inadequate to the task, and each of these sets of rules has been rejected by the legislature in bipartisan fashion. LD 820 is now before you, and I believe that it does, in fact, protect the clean water and the taxpayers of the state of Maine. And I want to briefly explain what the bill does and then encourage everyone in this body to vote yes on ought to pass, please. The bill would ban open pit mining in the state of Maine, the most dangerous, the most polluting form of mining in our country. The bill would ban storage of wet mine waste and the construction of tailing ponds and wet mine waste stored in floodplains where they could put downriver property, public and private, and lives very much at risk. The bill, in every dimension, was designed carefully and thoughtfully by members of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, by representatives of environmental organizations, by citizen activists and other environmental advocates, to take the long view, to protect our state's rivers, lakes, ponds, groundwater, and the pocketbooks, the public purse and the pocketbooks of our citizens. Perhaps, well, there are many significant provisions in the bill, but perhaps most importantly, it sends a message to mining companies with its provision in what we call financial assurance that cash or negotiable instruments would have to be posted with the state of Maine, with the DEP, while the permit is being processed, that would cover the cost in the event of an accident or spill, of a worst case accident or spill. And the appraisal, the understanding of that worst case would have to be approved by a third party, and funds sufficient to cover any remediation in the event of a spill or an accident would have to be advanced. The purpose of that requirement, of course, is not principally to cover the costs of an accident or a spill, but it is to send a very clear message to any mining company or mining interest that the state of Maine, through our legislation, is very serious about protecting our clean water, our people, our public property, our public health, and that should an accident occur, a great deal of money, millions, perhaps tens of millions of dollars or more, would be required by the company, not by the taxpayers of the state of Maine, to clean up the results of any accident or spill. I think this is a sensible bill, a well-designed bill. It narrows the definition of mining area to a very small area immediately adjacent to shaft mining, and as I said a moment ago, we will not have open pit mining in this state. And it, I believe, will serve us well long into the future. Thank you for allowing me to address you on LD820, and again, I urge your support with a yes vote on ought to pass.
Chair recognizes Senator from Franklin, Senator Saviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I request a roll call.
Senator from Franklin, Senator Saviello has requested a roll call. In order for the chair to order a roll call, he must have the express desire of 1/5 of members present. All those in favor of a roll call, please indicate by raising your hand. Obviously, more than 1/5 of members present are in favor of a roll call. A roll call is in order. The pending question before the Senate is acceptance of the majority ought to pass as amended by Committee Amendment A report. Chair recognizes the Senator from Franklin, Senator Saviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I forgot to ask if I could speak just very briefly about this, which
Senator
is
may
the famous
proceed.
last word. Thank you very much, Mr. President. As many of you know, I've been working on this bill since 2011. And sometimes being here in the legislature, it takes a long time to bring things to closure, but I really believe that we have done it and really done a good job at it. I thank my good friend Senator Carson, who he and I have been friends for over 30 years. It's hard to believe that we're really only 12 years old now. This bill, as the Senator mentioned, protects the state of Maine, protects the people if anybody does come into mine in relation to the third-party agreement. But there are a couple other things you need to realize. It also prohibits mining on public lands. It prohibits the use of a mining technique called wet tailings piles, which are where the catastrophes take place. It protects our lakes, it protects our streams, and it creates a high hurdle. A mining company can come here, but they will have to be extremely responsible and have a very huge hurdle to jump over. I know as I've given this speech before, I told the story about wearing a gold ring that was my uncle's. I talk about having a computer that has precious metals in it. I talk about your hybrids, those who drive it, that have precious metals in them for them to operate. And for us as the state of Maine said, go do it someplace else, go do it in Nigeria, go do it someplace where 5-year-olds mine gold. It's irresponsible on our part. But now we've taken the responsibility and said, we will allow mining here, but you have a high hurdle to reach, and we will allow it, but do it right or not at all. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Pending question before the Senate is acceptance of the majority ought to pass as amended report. If you're in favor of accepting that report, you'll be voting yes. If you're opposed, you'll be voting no. Is the Senate ready for the question? The doorkeepers will secure the chamber, and the Secretary will open the vote. Have all now voted? Secretary will close the vote and run until the chair will announce the vote. 34 senators have voted in the affirmative and 0 senators have voted in the negative. The motion to accept the majority ought to pass as amended report prevails.